After Hours.
On this episode of the History of the Course After Hours podcast, we discuss the band from Ukiah, California, known as AFI. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at IsSurvivedByPro for news and latest episode postings. And make sure to subscribe to the show, leave us a 5-star review, and write us a comment on YouTube or whatever podcast service you're using. Make sure to check us out on TikTok and give us a follow at IsSurvivedByProductions. And if you'd like to see us do some live streams, leave us a comment or tweet us the keyword stream. Now, without further ado, let's start the show.
The devil is in Atlanta, army surrounded.
Welcome back to the History of the Course After Hours podcast, where each and every episode I, Curtis, sit down with an avid listener of the History of the Course podcast, my friend Erik. That guy right there. His face finally revealed. Now let's hear the golden voice. What's up, Erik?
It's golden. I never knew that.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Mom
yes,
always
the first
radio.
Yeah. First time seeing Erik's face. Of course, everybody's familiar with my ugly mug, but yeah, this is Erik. Welcome
Hi,
to
internet.
Welcome to the video podcasting world, the wonderful world of video podcasting. Erik, I'm not even gonna. I mean, we're not even gonna like beat around the bush, man. We're just gonna dive right on into this band that we're discussing today. The band known as AFI. Now I usually start each episode with a couple of basic, routine questions, but today I'm going to start out with a trivia question.
Yay, my favorite.
I know how much you love those, Erik. Surely you'll get this one though. But here it is. What does AFI stand for?
Something about a funky infrared. No, it's a fire inside.
Yes, he had me for a second. There. I really thought maybe that he really didn't know. I was going to be disappointed because
this is lost my mind.
This is one of your favorite bands, isn't it?
Historically speaking, yeah, I listened to a whole lot of them back in the day.
Historically speaking, okay, cool. All right, well,
we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, so you listened to them a lot back in the day, but the question is, how were you introduced to AFI, Erik?
I cannot remember if it was like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3. That would have been Boy Who Destroyed the World from All Hallows EP.
Yeah.
Or if it was, right on the ground level of December Underground.
Okay.
I don't know really which one was the first I heard, because I kind of got Pro Skater 3 a little bit later. It wasn't, brand new on the shelf. I didn't get it the day it dropped.
Right.
It was early 2000s, late 90s. We didn't have internet, man. I don't know. You didn't know when a new game was dropping,
Right.
So
we were talking about AOL the other day, so
oh my goodness.
We understand.
Wow. Flashback. So it was sometime around that kind of December Underground-ish, right after that dropped. I did have original copy of December Underground sometime along the way.
Yeah.
But either way, it's been 18 plus years.
Okay. Yeah, I think I had gotten, the first time I heard him was on the radio, and it was December Underground. It was obviously Miss Murder on the local radio station.
Z-Track, right?
Yeah, but I think Josh had had known them before December Underground. I feel like, well, I can't remember now. It's been so long ago since we did that episode. Yeah, I'm sure he said something about it on that episode, but I can't remember. But anyway,
if I remember right, he said he was in there at least the CD before, or the album. Excuse me.
That's what I was thinking. Sing the Sorrow, but
maybe even a little.
Well, I was thinking maybe earlier than that, but maybe I'm thinking that because I know he was really big into or he's really big into Black Sails and Art of Drowning. But I think that's more of like going back later on and listening to it,
Right. Because Black
you know?
Sails was 99, I believe.
Right. And then
We were
Drowning
kind of
was
young at that point.
2000. Oh, yeah. I mean, we weren't, I mean, you and I weren't into the music that we're into now, or even at that point when December Underground came in, you know?
No. Well,
So,
December Underground's one of those albums that was kind of groundbreaking for me as far as getting into this
right.
type of music.
Right.
This is also when I
Exactly.
was starting to get into other stuff, emo, hardcore, full blown death metal,
Right. That
right when I first dipped
foundation
my
was
toe
being
into
built.
all that. Yes.
Right. Oh, oh, cold, cold, cold.
Oh, it's amazing. I'll jump in head first now.
Don't
Now
be
here
like
we are today.
me. Yeah, don't be like me. Take your cell phone out of your pocket before you jump in the pool. Uh,
Ooh,
yeah. You remember that?
that's a core memory.
Oh yeah, that's a core memory, like the history of the course. How would you describe AFI to a brand new listener, Eric?
Ah, man. They've been around so long. They've had a few little changes here and there.
Right.
So they've gone through a full blown punk era. They kind of slid into this melodic horror goth punk thing, and they went full blown emo for a cool minute. And then this most recent stuff's just basically alternative rock. I
Okay.
mean, there's
Yeah.
not much more to it than that. It's just alternative rock, really.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
with
mean,
a
being
sad overtone to it, but
right, being around since the early 1990s, was it 93, I think, is when they first came in. 92 or 93. Yeah, and
yeah,
still
somewhere in there.
surviving, 20 years later. Well, 30 years later, I guess. Yeah, 30 years later. Gosh, wow. Man, that's crazy to think about. 30 years.
Yep,
Because
they're old. We're
it's
old. Great.
it's weird. Well, it's weird to say 30 years for a band that we like because I mean, you think about like Silverstein, they've been around since 2000. They just went over 20 years not so long ago.
Silverstein.
Yeah, there you go. Repping the Silverstein, man. Nice. Um, I mean, Norma Jean's been around since, late 90s, 99 maybe. I mean, depends on what if you want to count
Yeah, that
ludicrous
one's a little
age, with
mushy.
it or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, so it's just weird to think like to say a band that I like now has been around for 30 years. It's like, wow. Okay. I'm 31, so what does that mean? It's been around for most of my life. But anyway. All right. So let's you mentioned the punk rock years. Let's talk a little bit about those punk rock years. Specifically, I like the obviously they got together in high school, played a few shows, didn't really get off the ground. Their big moment was when they broke up to go off to college. They came back for a reunion show over Christmas break, big reception, and they kind of all came together and said, you know what, we can probably do this thing for real. Um, and so one of the things that they ended up doing to just try to get by was squatting in vacant houses. That's pretty punk rock, right?
That's about the most punk rock thing you can do.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is Cali, so
That's
seems about
true.
right. I mean,
Right. That is true. Um, I don't know how into you or how into punk rock are you? How into punk rock are you, Eric?
moderately, I guess. This
Okay.
is a chunk of what it is that I listen to as far as punk rock goes.
So are you into kind of their punk rock
I like the punk rock
material?
energy.
Okay.
I like the energy that's there. I mean, throughout AFI's discography, you get that punk rock energy. We've talked about it on other bands as well. I forget which ones we've talked about here now, but we've said that that punk rock energy, in especially in post hardcore,
Right.
really drives and really moves forward. I like that. But as far as just straight punk rock, Josh mentioned in the original episode, there's punk rock people, and then over here there's hardcore people.
Right.
And I think I do fall more into that hardcore people category as a
Well,
whole.
and I always his words ring in my mind every time I hear or I think of punk rock or even hardcore as he talked about, like you said, there's punk rock people and then there's hardcore people. Punk rock was here's a problem, and hardcore is here's a problem, but here's the answer to it. punk rock really just kind of left it wide open of like, here's my problems,
Right.
you know. So
But
yeah,
at times it's
I
almost
didn't.
like I've told you in the past, like, what's the difference between folk and Americana?
Right. Fancy
I mean,
language.
the big, well, other than that, basically one's going to be about, rural America. The other one's going to be about folk themes. I went in my backyard and I climbed a tree. I did this, I did that, instead of, I am from Texas. I went through Oklahoma. I went on up into Kansas. That's Americana. We're talking about America
Right.
specifically, where
Right.
folk is just more of the themes of, whatever folk does, So
Right.
that's kind of almost the difference is the philosophy, I guess, of it.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I'm with you. It's like I like the energy, but it just kind of got like listening to that part of their discography because I didn't know going into the AFI episode, I didn't know that they had an early, punk rock years like they did. Of course, again, it's like I started off at December Underground. I mean, I knew a little bit of Sing the Sorrow, and I knew that Black Sails and Our Drowning were there, but I didn't know anything from like early '90s, and so that was a shock to me. And again, I like the energy that punk rock brings, but it's just like Josh said, it's like me and him, we're not that. We're hardcore kids. And you just said it too. It's like you're hardcore too. We're just not really into all the punk stuff. But
it
so
feels
I
more
mean
home being
it's
a
not
hardcore kid.
right. It's just I mean it's not bad. It's just for me, it's like listening to AFI's early years, it was a lot of like repetitive stuff. It felt like all the same. So yeah. Much like Fall of Troy, Eric.
Speaking of repetitive,
AFI, yeah, yeah, exactly. AFI recorded a live album very early in their career. The more you think about it, does the idea grow on you for an up and coming band to do a live album if they have the means and the I know me and Josh talked about it. I mean, in terms of just like money and situations and different stuff like that. Because not everybody can be like, oh yeah, let's go record at or look a hole in the wall over here real quick. Because I mean, you may not get a good quality. I mean, if you're gonna do that, let's get a decent quality at least. But I still kind of stand behind like I know again when we talked about it with the Spirit Box episode too. It's a different age. There's a lot of social media. Um, YouTube videos are big and making music videos and putting it on there is big too. But I always go back to the energy of a live performance. And you as somebody that, goes to a lot of concerts, you can
connoisseur, if you'd say.
a connoisseur of concerts, you can attest to, somebody coming out there and playing a good show and playing a bad show. I mean, you've probably seen some bad sets, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Y'all got a band coming up. I'm gonna give a scathing review because I hated their live set.
Oh boy, that we've got coming up
Yep,
on the
yep. You've already
Ooh,
done out the
who could
history
it
of the
be?
course, so after hours we're gonna hit it.
Oh, okay. I get what
So
you're saying. Okay, okay.
yeah,
Who could it be?
stay tuned.
Trying to like run through all the bands in my mind right now. I was like, anyway. Um, but yeah, do
Now
you
listening to them,
still
this is a teaser for that later episode. Listening to them now has not been so bad, but after that live show, I was off them for a long time. But anyway, so
okay?
live
Okay,
show
nice
can
little
make it or break it. That's one thing that goes into this question here.
okay, nice little tease. Okay. But yeah, are you still on board with doing a live album for an up and coming band to kind of get your name out there?
Yes, definitely.
Everybody,
If
I
they've
mean,
got the
everybody
means to do it, I think it's cheaper now than it would have been back in like the
oh
90s
yeah,
when they did this.
for sure.
Because you
Yeah.
think about back in the day, you have to get somebody's crazy big old cassette recorder thing, set it up on dude's shoulder. Uh, you know, Man, there's just so much that goes into it back then. And now the technology is so much cheaper and so much smaller. You could almost do it with a little phone or something like that.
Right.
I've
Yeah.
seen good quality phone, if you buy one of the high end ones with the 47,000 megapixel cameras and the, all that good stuff.
Right.
But,
I can't make a call, but
right. Yeah. But I can
but I
record a
can,
concert and
but I can
it's,
record a concert,
radio
man.
quality. So, but
Oh
anyway, yeah, I
man.
like that idea quite a bit. And it opens up a whole world of new fandom. So you can get a guy in here who goes, wow, that was a really good live set. Now I want to go see them live. I want to look up their music, that kind of thing. And I just like it a lot because,
Nice.
seeing somebody live versus listening to them, as a studio recording can be a
Right.
whole nother kind of deal.
Yes, exactly.
So
Yep.
giving me
If
that
you
little bit
can
of tidbit.
if you
I
can
like
master both of those though, man. Woo! Double-edged sword, man.
Absolutely.
Woo! All
That's a
right,
good way to rise to
going
the top.
there you go, man. Going back to the previous question on the punk rock years. Um, Give me your thoughts on their debut full-length album, Answer That and Stay Fashionable.
As a whole, it's a good old fashioned punk rock. Not bad, not my favorite, I guess. I do like the references to the pop culture, the title there, especially, one like this. It's like a little time capsule. I
Right.
kind of enjoy it. It's not a, what is it, Reservoir Dogs? It's
Yeah.
not a movie I think about every day, but you get into there and you go, what's that from? And then you get into the actual, like the artwork on the front of it
Right.
is like straight up ripped from the movie poster.
Right.
I don't know if you looked up
Yep.
the movie poster, but I actually put them side by side. I'm like, okay, so now they're missing a guy on one side there, but it's almost like a complete rip from it.
That's what I
There's
was
a
gonna
blood
say.
spatter on there, but anyway,
Even down straight to the album cover, I wonder if
yeah,
I wonder what the inside of the booklet would have been looking like. But yeah.
that'd be pretty cool to get a hold of. With as big
Did
as
you
they
get
are
to
nowadays, that'd be expensive.
did you get to listen to the mailing episode yet of the History of the
Yes.
Chorus podcast? So I had that thought on there. I expressed to Josh and said, man, I would really like it if there was like an online database of old lyric
Yes, so
booklets.
much.
That would be
That would be
so
great.
sick, man. And I know there was a couple albums that I bought off of like iTunes where you could get the like a digital version of it. So it's like come on, people,
So it's out there
somebody smart and with a lot of time, because I
with a
don't.
whole lot of time.
I'm barely smart, if at all, and I don't have a lot of time. But yeah, I think that'd be sick, dude. Because I'd be on there every day looking up stuff.
Oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
but
Because
anyway,
not just like the lyrics, like official lyrics. Like that
right,
was one thing I always went for is like, hey, what does that word actually say in there?
right,
Wait, it says
exactly.
what? Huh?
From
Are
the
you
actual
sure?
artist, not what.
Right.
Oh, Joe Schmo over here thinks he heard such and such. Is like, but I hear it a different
Well, especially
way.
early stuff like this. Now he's a little bit more clear. He's not so mumbly as he is getting into like December Underground. He's a little more mumbly.
Right.
But at
It's
that
called
point, they,
emotion.
yeah. That's full blown emo album. But yeah. Anyway, so you get kind of weird lyrics when you're looking on whatever, especially like I said back then, you're like, dude's writing it down as he's hearing it live, like, okay,
Right.
and yeah. And you don't know what you're hearing necessarily at a concert.
Right. Yeah,
Sometimes
exactly.
one word and artists have been known to change it at a concert. We talked about on the Silverstein episode, I forget what song it was, but instead of outside in a St. Louis parking lot, he says in a Diamond Room parking lot, which was Diamond Room ballrooms where I was seeing them. He tailored it to that location for us. And so a good band with a good stage presence will do that. So it's really hard to get those lyrics. But anyway, getting back to the original, the original album here, I'm kind of shocked that they didn't get sued by the movie or the production company for
Yeah.
Reservoir Dogs.
I
Because I mean, it
wonder
is like straight rip from the poster.
wonder what year, because that was like, what was that, 95 when that came out?
I think there was 2 years
This
difference.
album. Is there a
Right,
2 year
between the
difference? So
movie
it's,
and I think there was about a 2 year difference.
man, is 2 years enough? You think that they just overlooked it or didn't even notice it? Of course, and two, the other thing is we're talking about in the 90s, whereas now we're living in an age of you can find everything on the internet like that.
Well,
So
that's
maybe
true.
there wasn't as much. It was a lot
This
easier to
wasn't like
hide it
a
back then.
breakthrough album. This is not like
That's true.
Boston with their name track at Boston, where it
Right.
hit every home in America. It's not
Right.
that big of an album. retrospectively, it's a bigger album than it was when it came out. So maybe that's why it
Right.
didn't get,
Well, and
moved
maybe
off the
later,
internet. And
yeah, maybe later on when the band got bigger, maybe it kind of came out and they had to pay some residuals or something. Maybe.
well, that's possible.
Um,
But
yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting thought though. Good thought. Good question, Eric.
I'm just, like I said,
Nice.
that got in my head, and I was like, how did they not get sued for that? Because that is
Nice, man.
so like mirror image of it.
Right. Okay, so I brought up the deal about lyric booklets, online database, so on and so forth. Because man, unless you just go buy a CD anymore, it's like that's just kind of a lost art, right? Here's
Well, and
another
getting
lost.
to buy CDs that you want, that's harder too.
Yeah,
But anyway,
that's true. Yeah. Well, here's another lost art for you, Eric. Pre-Gap songs. Are you familiar with pre-Gap songs?
familiar.
Man, I miss pre-Gap songs. And in the digital
I do too.
age, there's just like there's no way to do it. I mean, you had to have a physical copy and hit the reverse button to even like find these hidden tracks in between songs or at the beginning of an album or whatever. And it blows my mind that in 2024, there's not a way to somehow get that on iTunes or Spotify or whatever. And it's just, oh man. Do you have any
Yeah.
pre-gap songs that come to your mind?
I couldn't remember what it was, but I remember finding out about these in like '06 or '07. And I can't remember the name, album, anything about it. But I remember looking through all of my CD collection. I put everyone in the CD player, hit reverse just to
Right.
see if it would go into the negatives or go zero or go, there's a couple of different ones I saw. But I checked over every CD that I own looking for that. And I think I only found one or two out of everything I own. But man, that was so cool, so hyped to find that.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's no way to do that anymore. So you just don't have that. Oh, is there something cool? Is there something hidden? Is there a little
Right.
speck of treasure here that I don't know?
Yeah.
And the answer is no, because it's all out there in the open for you.
Man, it sucks though, man. I mean, you can still find
Right.
some of these songs on like YouTube. So it's like obviously people are able to rip it off of a CD to put it on YouTube. So why can't it get put on, like I said, Spotify or iTunes or whatever? It's just, man, really grinds my gears. The first one that I can think of two off the top of my head. One of them is a Norma Jean. I'm getting my reference in here. Norma Jean, Oh God, the Aftermath, has a pre-gap track at the very beginning of the album. And then um, it's a band called Fair to Midland. You ever heard of them? They're not around
I don't think I have.
anymore. Yeah, they only had like, I think,
They were
three
just fair to Midland,
albums.
right?
They were just Fair to Midland. And I mean, they weren't really that popular, to be honest. Um, but they had, I think it's their sophomore album I had, and there was a pre-gap track on that. And I think that was the very first one that I ever found. And I was like, what the heck? I was like, why is the CD going into the negative here because I think I accidentally, like, I was trying to hit like the back button to like go back to the beginning of that first song, but I guess I didn't hit it enough or hit it a weird way and it just like started reversing it. Well, then it went into the negative. I'm like, why is it going into the negative here? And why does it just keep going? Why is it at like a minute, negative a minute? What's going on here? And it's like you just let it play and it was like, what the heck is this? But yeah,
I've listened to this 1,000 times and I've never seen that.
I've never
Yeah,
never
that was the same
heard
way.
this. What the
Whatever
heck?
the one I found was the same way. I was like, what's going on? I broke my
This
CD
is
player. Oh, crap.
crazy. Yeah, I was like,
Mom's going
oh
to kill
no.
me. I broke it
Oh
again.
no. This is what those religious fanatics were talking about with the backwards songs. Oh no,
Oh,
what have I
no.
done? Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely
I
a
do miss
lost
that,
art,
especially
man.
compared to that time when I found that. All
Right.
the iTunes bonus tracks were the big thing coming out at that
Yeah.
point.
Yep.
And I didn't like that either because I wasn't real big on iTunes. I used other different types of media and whatnot. But so iTunes specific users got this specific thing trying to
Oh yeah.
incentivize me to use them. And I'm like, no, I don't want it. Just
What?
makes
Yeah,
me angry. But
that's kind of
anyway,
like yeah, so there's like you got like that, you go like the international bonus tracks, like there'll be like a Japanese bonus track or whatever.
yep.
But my favorite ones to see is the Best Buy bonus tracks. It's like,
Oh,
man, that's a throwback. Because I
that
mean
is
that mid
way
2000s era, when a lot of people were buying their CDs from Best Buy, and they would do bonus tracks through that or whatever. But all right, Eric, 1 for 1 so far on your trivia. Let's see if you can make it 2 for 2 on the episode.
I don't know. 50% is pretty fun.
He's like, can't I just take the 50% and go home? You're already at home. Where does the artwork from Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes come from?
Let me get a look.
You better not be cheating over there.
Oh, I'm definitely cheating.
See, here's the bad problem. I used to be able to keep an eye on him because we were in the same room. Now we're in 2 different places. I'm at my home and he's at his home, so I can't make sure that because it's like he's just looking at the screens. It's like, oh, he's just looking at me. No, he's probably looking it up right now, man.
Well, I'm getting an idea of what it actually looked like.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Oh,
Shut your mouth and open your eyes. Where does it come from? The inspiration.
I'm going to say drugs. Pretty
Close.
heavy drugs.
In a way, yeah. Yeah. The answer is it's inspired by a 1929 Magic Set artwork kit. So like the little box of that the Magic Set came in. I think if you go to the Wikipedia page, it'll show you like the bigger version of it or whatever. But yeah, kind of creepy. If you ask me.
It is creepy looking. It definitely looks like drugs were involved in the making of that.
Oh. Okay, so we've done the punk years. You mentioned the horror punk kind of / gothic punk. Let's talk to me about that transition from just straight up punk into the horror punk kind of gothic, which starts at shut your mouth and open your eyes. I always want to say the opposite. I always want to say shut your mouth and or shut your eyes and open your mouth. But I'm like, yeah, that sounds weird. Yeah. So this transition really starts at shut your mouth and open your eyes. And then I also have kind of in parentheses here, the New York Times said that this period right here was actually where Davey Havok developed into a singer / songwriter of substance. And then as I read that, I think of what Josh said. Yes, because I like to go to the New York Times for my music reviews.
Especially on punk rock.
But anyway, talk to me about that transition there, Eric.
That being said, I do agree with the reviewer pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
Bunch of,
this time
angry high schoolers that are very limited with their words and how they articulate that rage that they have acquired to having a little more life experience and maturity. So that way they can actually become that songwriter of substance, I think is the way he put it.
Yeah.
And then, add a few layers, like Shrek, like onions.
I was like, what?
Like ogres and onions. We got layers.
We've got layers, man. We've got layers.
Yeah, it's not just like the surface level. And that may be another thing I was thinking about punk rock versus hardcore, as far as you got more surface level. And then over on your other side with hardcore, there's a few more layers to it typically.
Yeah.
Not always, not 100%, but anyway, I did feel that change personally for me. And when I was going through the discography, the biggest change to that songwriter of substance was somewhere about Black Sails for me. I think that's where I really felt it kick off. And I was like, oh, this is different. This is not just angry, I'm screaming, I'm punk. Yeah. It was a little bit more than that, like
substance?
The original, the original CD, you're sitting there looking at it and one of the song tracks is, I want to get a mohawk.
Right. And you're like, okay.
I mean, that's pretty surface level, I want to get a mohawk. What's the mohawk stand for? It's a big pointy stack of hair on top of my head. I don't know.
And I want it.
And it's mine.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well,
Then
speaking of
go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, the swoopy hair that just kept getting longer and longer until it was just a big.
It's a reverse mullet.
Now he's kind of back to a little bit of a faux hawk type thing, I guess. Or no, he was. I think he was for a little bit there, and then he's kind of got more styled hair now. But anyway, you mentioned Black Sails. He grew up. He was a boy. Now he's a man. You mentioned Black Sails in the Sunset. So give me your opinion. Is Black Sails in the Sunset a monumental release? Mm,
Yes.
yes. If you can't hear the rocks in his head, no, I was kidding.
I think it was a
Oh,
huge
man.
release. I think they learned they leaned hard into that horror from the horror punk, and they definitely added more melodic elements to it, which personally I dig it.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I told
that's what
Josh,
really took a turn into the, things I listen to category.
right. I told Josh in the original that everybody that I've talked to that is into AFI always cites Black Sails in the Sunset. Or maybe the album after or the album before as like that's where they really like. I mean, this is the period where you start gaining a lot of people. So much that it's even
Well,
bands
Art of
like
Drowning was just a year later, so
yeah, yep,
being just a
exactly.
year apart, absolutely, yeah.
Right. Even bands such as like Rise Against and Avenged Sevenfold cite this album right here as being heavily influenced by it for their band or bands. So yeah, big album. Definitely a monumental release. Would you
100%.
say me and Josh talk about like, the roller coaster, the graph of their discography? Do you feel like this is their peak?
I feel like they're still heading towards the top there.
Okay. What's the
I think
peak
they
moment for
peaked just a
you?
little bit. I really feel like peak to me is probably Sing the Sorrow for me.
Okay. Okay.
Just it's a good rounded album. They're
That's what
not
I
too
was gonna say.
mumbly.
Yeah.
They're not too like punk rocky. They're
Well,
not,
it feels
you
like
know,
that's another transitioning that album is a transition point from what you have here in Black Sails, Art of Drowning, mixed in with December Underground. You start to kind of get in
which
that little bit of
that's it right
mainstream
there.
sound. Yeah. So quick question here for you, Eric. Is maybe this is the third trivia, maybe. I don't know. Is Malice Maleficarum a song title or a Harry Potter spell?
It's definitely a Harry Potter stuff. Got to be. But
It's gotta
I
be. It's
actually
gotta
went
be, man.
a little nerdy on this, and I was like, "What the heck does that mean?"
It's
So I went
Latin,
down a
isn't
rabbit
it?
hole. I think it is. It
Okay.
literally translates to "Hammer of Witches,"
Oh, so it is Harry
and
Potter.
it comes from a German written book by a 1400s clergyman, and some have cited it and called it demonology or
Interesting.
things like that.
Okay.
And the lyrics in that song actually could be seen as a witch being burned. You know, hammer of
Okay.
witches. We're taking them down. Actually, I thought that was a really interesting
Hammer
thing.
the Witches. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
That
I
is
thought that was really
interesting.
neat. But
Huh. Yeah.
they're not a bunch of dummies as far as their names and their albums and
No,
their
no, no,
lyrics
no.
at all.
Well, and that's we
This is
talked about
getting
in the
into that
original, and you just said
songwriter of
it. Yeah,
substance, right?
substance. You get that in their early punk years. It's like you said, it's like I want a mohawk, cereal war, breakfast cereal wars. I mean, it's like,
Yep.
yeah, this is you can tell it's like the immaturity, the basic writing. And then yeah, you get into Shut Your Mouth and even Black Sails, you get these more mature um song titles. We talked about it with A Devil Wears Prada on those three episodes. Once you like those first three full lengths, very, kind of immature song titles. But once you
You mean
hit
the fun song titles? Yeah.
the fun song titles, yeah. But once you hit obviously Zombie EP or even Dead Throne, that's where you get that more sophisticated, the substance, So it's interesting to see bands kind of grow up like that. But
When they stay around long enough, like either one of those bands, AFI or Devil Wears Prada, you see them grow up, and then they, grow with you or grow away from you. But you
right,
know, you do see them grow, and that
right.
is interesting.
The baby must grow.
It is a clear
Eric,
progression in this case.
right. I think we've already kind of hinted on the answer here for this next question, but maybe you can give me more of from this album to this album. What would you say is, in your opinion, the best era in AFI's discography?
Well, we did touch a little bit on it. Black Sails kind of would be my starting point here. See,
Okay.
starting point of my hand here.
Look at my hand.
And then the other end here would be sandwiched. See, there's a lot of sandwich, a lot of meat here. A lot of meat. But would be December Underground.
Okay.
So in the middle, you got Art of Drowning, that is, and Sing the Sorrow. So it's more melodic than their old stuff. It's not as, alt rock as their newer stuff. I like it. It's good.
It's happy medium.
It's that golden era
Okay.
of that kind of emo, that good stuff.
Right. Hey, Eric, speaking of emo, and we kind of already hinted at this too. We started to see a new transition. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh boy. Come have you, Black Man. We started to see, we started to see a new transition in sound at Sing the Sorrow. We kind of touched base on that a little bit. What comes after can be described by Josh as, quote, ultra emo, being December Underground is what he was talking about. Do you agree? And what do you make of the mainstream album?
It's pretty emo. Yeah. I mean,
Ultra
it's hard to deny
emo.
that.
The longer the swoopy hair, the more emo.
Yeah. It's pretty emo. But this is the kind of the era that I found them, that I really leaned into, at least when I was younger. So it holds a special place in my little heart. And I was also listening to a lot of other, quote, emo bands, kind of like Taking Back Sunday, Aiden, a little bit of Hawthorne Heights, others that you could definitely include in there too. But so I think it was definitely a timely album as far as what was already out there, kind of where they were growing and moving to, and the whole industry as a whole. So yeah, it's emo.
Okay. Yeah.
And I kind of like it.
But is it ultra?
Plus ultra. Especially with that hair, the swoop.
Swoop. Gotta get it out.
I think we all
had
had that twitch back then too.
Oh, we did. Yeah. And in our later years, we'll have a big kink in our neck and we won't know why.
What's that?
Why does it hurt so much on this one side?
Oh man, I think that's 2007 coming back to bite me.
Yes. Feels like about 2006. Oh boy. Oh boy. So, Eric, do you like some gang vocals?
I do quite a bit.
I enjoy some gang vocals too.
But gang come back yet?
In a way, maybe.
Oh.
Now, gang vocals involving all your friends from your local high school, your little circle, it's all in well. When you're an up and coming hardcore band, obviously, but did they really need, and I mean AFI, did they really need 33 people to do background vocals on December Underground? I mean,
probably
really?
not.
That's not DIY.
I don't know how they recorded it. If they did it all live, at one time, maybe, I guess. But yeah, at that point in time, we're talking about, we do have, Pro Tools. We've got things that you don't need 33 people to do the job of 3.
Right.
You do get depth when you use different people. I guess I'll say that.
Yeah.
But I don't know about 33. That's a lot
33,
of depth.
33 though,
it may not be needed.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not saying like all 33 people were on the same track at the same time for each song or whatever. I mean, it may have been more of like, 5 of those people were available this day and 10 of them were available the next day, or maybe, I don't know. But 33 people, I mean, I just remember like going through like the credits and just kept going. And I was like, how many, what is happening here? It's like, okay. And yeah, immediately I think of Comeback Kid, with that. I mean, but again,
well, Silverstein on Short Songs.
Yeah.
I don't know how many they had. They were in the running for that though.
Well, I think, no, I don't think it's that close. But I think one of the things with that too was I think they used the people that were like guest vocals too, like Liam from Cancer Bats, just a bunch of those guys kind of like helped out. So it was like the same people over and over and over. 33 people though, that seems like too much. At that point, it just seems like a
I bet.
choir.
I mean,
So
that's kind of that sound, maybe a little,
that's
not
kind of what I
quite,
was
but
like, kind of a choir, but anyway. Uh
that's Chariot. We'll leave that for them.
yeah, we'll leave that for the cherry, man. So re-listening to Miss Murder. When was the last time you listened to Miss Murder?
Well, last night, but before
Okay.
that,
Yeah, before
uh,
that.
I mean, before getting in for this show,
Right.
it'd been a couple years.
Okay. So you had made mention on our comeback episode about, listening to Wake the Dead and, not listening to it for a while and then thinking, I'm going to listen to it again. It's like you can kind of hyped and then you listen to it and kind of like, why am I not as hyped as I thought I was going to be?
Man, I thought they were going to wake the dead, and they didn't wake me up.
Yeah, they didn't Wake the Dead, man. I'm still sleepy. Um, that's how I felt with Miss Murder after not listening to it for all these years and then getting prepared for the original episode of the History of the Chorus podcast. I turned it on and I was like, is it, I don't remember. This doesn't seem familiar. Like it just didn't yeah, it just didn't hit me like it used to. And so I was wondering maybe if you kind of felt the same thing that I did with Miss Murder that you did with Comeback Kids Wake the Dead.
I think this one, that listening to it for the first time after so long, that bass intro still hits so hard. Because when listening to it when I was first introduced to that, I was like, doom, 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 doom. I was like, oh,
Ooh,
this is going to be
woo!
it right here.
Right.
And it still hits like a tanker truck, is the way I wrote it in my notes, because it is fantastic still. Because
Nice.
it just runs me over every
Cool.
time.
Yeah.
And it still hits. It's still great for me.
Okay.
That being said, I was thinking about Comeback Kid, and I was like, maybe it's the Mandela effect on us.
Maybe.
We hear something that we thought was going to be so good, and then it's like, wait
Yeah.
a second, reality sets in. That being said, the first copy I had of this, I don't remember if I had a friend burn me a copy of a few songs, like a mixtape type,
December
before I
Underground.
got the actual album.
Yeah.
But Miss Murder, only like the interlude part that goes right before the talking part, only had a single like riff. So it's
Interesting.
actually, there's two parts to it, and it's the same riff twice.
Okay.
So even today, I have to watch myself when I'm sitting here listening, singing along in the car or whatever, and I'll start to go into the talking part in my head. I'm like, oh,
Nope.
got one
Too
more. Hold
early.
on a
Too
second.
early.
And again, that might be that. I haven't been able to find that kind of.
Been there.
Yeah, I haven't
Huh.
found that kind of copy in a long time. I don't know if that was
Wonder what
something
the
weird my
deal.
friend got a hold of, or maybe like a live set that just was really clean. But anyway,
Maybe it was like a
maybe it's the
demo
Mandela
version.
effect again. I don't know. It could have
Yeah,
been
that's
demo. I don't know.
weird. Well, I didn't have
Like I
this
said, that
problem
was a long
until
time ago.
yeah, I didn't have this problem until you brought it up on Comeback Kids episode.
You're
And then
welcome.
it finally
My
happened with
dearest
Miss Murder. I'm
apologies.
like, man, now I'm worried it's going to happen to other songs. So far, so good. But yeah, Miss Murder just didn't hit as well as he used to for me. But I don't know. Okay, I've been waiting for this next question, Eric, because this is something that I've talked about with Josh a lot, and we're actually just about to talk about it on another episode that we're about to record later today. Um, so obviously, you have Sing the Sorrow, December Underground, big hits. Yeah, they're on the mainstream. They're well known. Yeah. Davey Havoc said that Crash Love, which would be the album after December Underground, would be the album that they would be remembered by. Now, again, me and Josh have had discussions on more of just like how he meant that statement. And I would have liked to hear more from him, like what he actually meant by that, because I feel it's kind of left a little bit open. Maybe I'm digging too deep into it, but I feel like there's two roots there. There's this is going to be the album that we're remembered by because I believe that it's really good and I believe it's better than December Underground, or he's looking at the effect of he recognizes how good December Underground was for himself and even the band, and putting their staple on the mainstream. Um, and now he's saying, look, it's we like Crash Love, as in the band, probably. I mean, I would hope that they would like what they wrote, but it's kind of like this is the make it or break it, because if this does not live up to December Underground's hype or higher, then everybody's going to remember that. And me and Josh talked about it with, I used to use Define the Great Line. Now, don't get me wrong, Lost in the Sound of Separation is a good album, but it's not Define the Great Line, or in Eric's case, Define the Grand Line. But yeah, hey, it's okay. Periphery, periphery, what's the difference?
Same.
Yeah, it's the same thing. But yeah, you get these albums that are just like smash hits. They're probably the most memorable ones for bands, and then they follow it up, and it's like, how do you connect that bridge? Because it feels like you started building that bridge, but then it just like fell off,
Then you tripped
And
and fell off the
right, exactly. So I wanted to get, obviously you've heard me and Josh's thoughts. I wanted to get your thoughts on the quote from Davey Havoc. And after that, I would like to know, did Crash Love, in your opinion, live up to that hype?
So I think it's hard to tell what he actually meant,
Right,
Nobody knows except for Davey Havoc.
right.
Which, is that his real name, or is that a stage name, by the way?
No, it's his real name.
Because Havoc is a pretty cool name for an old school
It's pretty
punk
sick.
rocker,
It's pretty sick, right?
I thought about that the other day. I was like, that is really cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, on my aside there, I think it kind of leans more into we're going to be remembered for this album because, our last album was great. The album before that was pretty good, but this album, we've been leading up to that, December Underground. And then here we get Crash Love, and, we're at a peak. If we fall off the peak, we will be remembered for this.
Right.
And for me, going into that second part of your question, for me, I don't think Crash Love lived up to the hype. I heard it was so okay from a few friends that listened to it. So I didn't even give it a chance until 2 years later when I finally looked it up. And I just wasn't a big fan. And about that time is about when I started moving from old school iPod to streaming, because my poor dear old iPod battery life just wasn't having it. Poor little thing was about to give up the ghost. Sweet little guy. But so I kind of moved more into the streaming, and the streaming I was using at the time was more of a radio station. Radio. Yeah, that baloney. But anyway, so
he's got beef.
Big old stacks of baloney. But listen to a whole album, people. Come on. Just take an album.
I agree.
Listen to the whole thing. Try it out. You probably like it, I promise.
You wouldn't read one chapter of a book, like in the middle of the book, would you? I mean, read the whole book.
And then put it down, and then read this book over here for 2 chapters, and then read that book over there for a chapter.
Right.
Yeah. No. Anyway, I digress. But see my soapbox, I'll jump off it. But anyway, so they really fell off the map for me for quite a while, because I couldn't put on, AFI radio and not hear the new stuff, which I didn't like.
Right.
So I remembered them for so long for Crash. And then I got on some, there's been some healing in the realm of streaming music. So I can listen to a whole album now, and I can just put on Sing the Sorrow. I can just throw on,
I can choose what I want to listen to.
Exactly. Every little bit I could choose.
Okay.
So they've kind of come back a little bit more into rotation since then. But for many, 6 or 7 years, completely fell off the map for me. Like, I didn't know that Blood EP or Blood anything came out. I didn't know any about that for years. I didn't know about that because they just were off the map for me.
Right.
Because I remembered that Crash Love, and I was like, So
yeah,
they were remembered in my mind for Crash.
So speaking of those last 3 albums, Eric,
I mean, what?
Ew. Josh said it was. He said it was hard to hate the last three albums. Those three albums being Burials, AFI, which is also known as the Blood Album, and Bodies. He said it was hard to hate those last three albums because there seemed to be a pattern of a bad song followed by, in his opinion, a passable song. Now, me personally, I was so glad when all three of those albums were over. I was like, I can't even believe I made it through these. They weren't terrible, but it's just like they're just an album to me, you know. So I mean, I know you've already kind of a little bit touched on it. Have you listened to all three of these albums?
I have a couple
Okay.
times at this point.
Yeah, and
I
I know you
really
said it
tried
just
to give them a try.
didn't really do it for you, right?
Like nothing I would say, I absolutely hate them, but if it
Right.
comes on a party playlist or something, I might look at the TV and go, "What is this crap?"
He goes to a lot of
Uh,
parties.
oh yeah, I'm a big party person.
You
Yeah,
mind
that's
if I change this?
so. Anyway, as a whole, there are a couple, as Josh put it, passable songs on each, but it's not enough really to redeem otherwise lackluster few albums for me.
Have you ever had
So
an album? Have you ever had an album besides AFI? Because I know we're talking about this right now, but like outside of AFI, have you ever had an album kind of like what Josh is describing of like I want to hate it, but I can't hate it because there's a bad song. And I'm like, oh, this is terrible. But then it's like, oh, okay, a redeemable song. You're like, okay, maybe we'll get some traction here. And it's like the next one comes on, you're like, what are you doing? You know, feels like you're stuck in the
I
mud. And
mean,
like every once in a while, you might kind of like get out of the mud, but then you get
get
even
a little
stuck even
traction and
more.
then you're stuck
Yeah,
back, and then a little more
exactly.
traction, and yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure there's several for me. They're probably just albums I don't hit up very often, just
right,
because it does feel like you're just spinning your wheels for a lot of it. And I am an album person. I do like listening to albums as bookends. You start here, you end here. I
right,
do typically like that as a whole. They put those albums out from the artist in that way to be consumed in that way. Unless you're a new pop artist and then they put out one song and they wrap it with poo all around it.
Well, it's like me and Josh. Yeah, me and Josh said it's like most of those hit songs are going to be at the very beginning of your album, and then it's just
Mhm.
total crap fillers to end it, you know.
Yep.
So,
It's not like AFI writing 750 songs or whatever ridiculous number for,
oh
what was
my
it, December
gosh.
Underground, I believe.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. I think it was December Underground. They came in with like way too many songs. It's like, all right, that's not good. Because then
Yeah,
it's
we're
like
gonna
after that, you're thinking, okay, how many of these songs are you just like dumping on the rest of these albums then? You know? Because I mean, surely you don't just like throw
especially
them away.
Crash
You're
kind of feels like what was left over after we did, December Underground. Almost
right. Well, it's
not 100%
like a
because it did change a
B-side
little.
album. Yeah.
It really is close enough sound wise that you could almost say that.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway,
Well,
that's my rant.
definitely the era that we definitely agree on is that middle portion of Black Sails to December Underground and everything in
Yep.
between, Art of Drowning and Sing the Sorrow. So
I will say I'll bookend that with I don't think Crash Love was as bad as I thought it was to begin with. It's more passable than I thought.
okay.
It's
Okay.
peak. I feel like we were rolling down the other side of the mountain at that point,
Yeah.
but
Must have
it's
run
not
the other
like
side of
we've
the
hit
hill.
rock bottom yet. So
Right. Yeah. All right. Let's finish this episode, Eric, with our usual question of your favorites from AFI, talking albums, songs, lyrics, riffs, artwork. Go for it.
oh man, artwork. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Probably All Hallows EP for artwork. I dig that.
Okay. Okay.
Kind of the
That's a good one.
graveyard
Yeah.
pumpkins going around, kind of in
Yeah.
that I don't know what you call that art style, almost comic booky art style.
Yeah. It's kind of what I always thought. That and Art of Drowning were kind of the same. Yeah.
Very similar, yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. I like both of those actually.
Okay.
But let's see. So some lyrics I like. This one's from Silver and Cold.
Yep.
Shall I start the song? think that's how it starts anyway. Light, like the flutter of wings. Feel your hollow voice rushing into me. As you're longing to sing. So, I will paint you in silver. I will wrap you in gold. I will lift up your voice as I sing.
Nice.
I enjoy it. Like I said, this is, you can, I just picked a couple of songs that I really liked and just picked little blurbs out of them because there's so much good lyrics in this. Because he
Right.
really is a songwriter of substance at this point, like during that
Right.
middle discography, especially. So, another one here from Love Like Winter. Warn your warmth to turn away. Here it's December every day.
Every day.
Press your lips against the sculptures, and surely you'll say, "Love like winter."
It was
That
December.
one, I can sing every word of that one probably to this
Oh my
day.
goodness.
That's one of those. I remember that one and like Aiden, The Last Sunrise.
Yeah.
I could still do the first verse of that one. You sink your teeth and bite the blood and drain the life of the sun. You know, the whole bit.
Yeah.
It was so fast. I remember doing that as a pretty young guy.
Yeah.
And people around me like,
What in
"What
the world?
are you?
Are you a vampire?
Maybe a little, just on the inside." But yeah, anyway, there are so much more. Pick an album, pick a song. You've got some good lyrics in there. Albums, it was a really, really close call for my favorite between December Underground and Sing the Sorrow. Trying to turn off my nostalgia switch. I think I have to go with Sing the Sorrow, at least
Okay.
today. I go back to that one more often, it seems, than I do December Underground at the moment. Tomorrow
Man,
might be a different day.
how about that?
I mean, it's still close.
Right. How about that opener though for Sing the Sorrow? That one gets me hyped. That's a good
Yes.
one. I love the gang vocals on that one, man. I can't remember what it's
It's a
called.
weird name. I can't remember.
Yeah. I think there's some parentheses too with some stuff in it.
There is. It's
One
a
of
weird
those.
name.
Yeah, but that's a good opener. But
It
yeah.
is pretty good.
Anyway.
I enjoy it. So, top three. Again, this is one of those. I've been listening to this band for 18 plus years. This is my top three, like, say, this week. Tomorrow, that's probably going to change. Today, it's probably
Okay.
different. I wrote this, this part last night. So, it's probably changed today, even. Because,
Are we
like I
talking
said,
about songs?
so much good stuff. Yeah, top three.
Okay. Okay.
So we'll start with number three,
Okay. Number 3.
as is our practice. So, I went with
Tradition.
Kill Caustic for number
What
three.
is it? Wait, what was it?
Kill Caustic
Oh, okay. Okay.
from
Gotcha.
Underground.
Yeah.
It's the one right after the opener, the 1221 or whatever.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
such good. You're like, it just gets really into it right
Oh
off the top.
yeah. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. You got all that?
It's vampire core. Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, 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 blah. So number 2,
Number 2.
Girls Not Gray.
Nice.
I
Yeah,
enjoy
that
that one a
was
lot.
I think that was probably the second one that I had heard on the radio. Because Miss Murder was the first one, but I think they were already playing Girls Not Gray because that was on Sing the Sorrow, correct?
Yes. Yes, it
And
was. Good stuff.
I think it was one of those where it's like I didn't know that they were already playing that, and the next time they were playing it, I was like, oh, this must have been on December Underground too. It's like, nope.
Nope. Close.
Nah.
And before we get to number 1, I do want to make a special mention for
Okay.
Boy Who Destroyed the World.
That's a good one too. Yep.
That's one of those early ones I listened to, and I was like, "Who are these guys? I gotta go find them."
Right.
Let's jump on LimeWire and give my computer the worst Trojan virus you ever seen because I need some of this right now.
I'm a pirate.
I don't know where my friend got his music. It's very likely that's probably back in the day. But
man.
anyway, I like to get my music legally. I don't want people knocking.
I'm
on
a
my
good
door.
citizen. I pay
am
my
the
taxes.
But
Oh, man.
anyway, so number 1,
Number 1. Yeah.
is Kiss and Control.
Ooh, control that kiss.
It's pretty vampire-y. I enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's lyrically pretty emo.
Are you into the
Takes me
vampire
back
rock?
to middle school. Not really. Unless it's Aiden or AFI, no.
Okay. 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 Nice.
Those two
Yeah.
just kind of hit me at the right time in my life, and nostalgically, they hit it.
Right. Gotcha. When he was in his vampire emo phase.
Oh yeah. With the
The
flippy hair.
sun. I only go out at night. All right. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on the band known as AFI?
If you've been living under a rock for 30 years and you're just now getting into AFI, a good place to start is somewhere in that what we talked about, Black Sails up through December Underground. December
Right.
Underground is going to give you your radio playables, and then getting back into more of that gothic punk, horror punk type thing, and it kind of is a gradient in between. So kind of pick you one in between if you like that. That's where I'd start you.
Cool. My final thought is Havoc is actually Davey Havoc is his stage name. His birth name is David Payton Pissarro.
Pissarro.
Yeah. But good
Havoc's
catch there. Yeah, Havoc's a lot cooler. It's very punk. Yeah, for sure. So
Super punk.
super punk. Might I say ultra punk? Mhm.
Ah, yes. Ultra punk's good.
Yes. All right, let's get on out of here. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at is survived by pro for news and latest episode postings, not just on this show, but our other shows as well. We have the History of the Chorus podcast, where me and Josh sit down and discuss the history and discography of bands from the core genre. We also have the Red Right Hand podcast, which has covered all 6 seasons of the Peaky Blinders. And we also have the Throne of the Dragon podcast, which so far has covered season 1, soon to be season 2 of House of the Dragon from HBO. Also, while you're on Twitter, make sure to follow my co-host at Joshua Lynn Gary. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review and write us a comment on whatever podcast service you're using. And if you want to listen to us, and now you can see our smiling faces on this very podcast. Hey, buddy, looking good. Hey. Just head on over to our YouTube page. Just search "Is Survived by Productions," and that'll have every episode from all of our shows. Subscribe to the channel and thumbs up the video. Till the next episode, we're going to talk about a little band from Greensboro, North Carolina, known as To Speak of Wolves. We'll see you.